if you're trying to avoid uh, the people skills component of work,
Mhm.
the financial services industry is not probably the place to do it, depending on what you want to do within the bank. But in general, it's a very people business.
Welcome to Hired Not Fired by The Real Me. We help turn your human skills into superpowers, the skills AI can't replace, so you get noticed, get interviews, and get hired. Hi there. Welcome back to this week's episode of Hired Not Fired. I'm Dr. Deb Samuels-Peretz, and I am delighted to introduce this week's guest. I have Mark Houldsworth. Mark is Vice President, Executive Recruiter at Bank of America. He's over 25 years experience in the recruiting industry, with the last 15 years focused on the financial services industry. While he's currently focused on more experienced professionals, Mark has a passion for early development and support. Welcome to the show, Mark.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Deb.
I'm really excited because you have such rich experience in the banking industry, and I know that many of our listeners are interested in learning more about it. For students who only know banking from movies or headlines, what does a real workday actually look like, especially early in your career?
Well, I'll tell you, if to anyone who has only seen banking through the movies, you're going to be very disappointed because if the movies reflected what it was actually like, they wouldn't sell any tickets at all. Um, so it's don't get it can be a very exciting career. It is a very exciting career. But what early career recent graduate students should expect if they do want to go into financial services is a couple of things. One is a large interaction, a large amount of interaction with other human beings. So many people get into financial services thinking it's a way that I'm just going to crunch numbers all day. It's what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
Nothing could be further from the truth. It's a very much a people business, interacting with customers. There's an enormous amount of collaboration that takes place in large
Mhm.
financial institutions. It's impossible to get anything done by yourself. Everything you have to work together. So if you're trying to avoid uh, the people skills component of work,
Mhm.
the financial services industry is not probably the place to do it, depending on what you want to do within the bank. But in general, it's a very people business.
How early in their career would new hires start working with clients?
Uh, as soon as they get here, they work with customers. So the organization I work in, the industry I work in, it's very much a client-centric industry. Everyone is taught that even if you're not necessarily interacting physically with a client, talking to them, what you're doing is affecting a client. So I have a saying, client, company, team, individual. You do what's best for the client first. You do what's best for the company second. You do what's best for the team third. And you do what's best for yourself last. Um, the interactions with the customers start as soon as you get there. It's very much a think like a customer type environment. And some interact with customers much more. Like if you're a
Mhm.
teller, all you do is interact with customers,
Right.
constantly, as opposed to a trader who sits behind a computer. But the mentality is very much the same.
Mhm. Yeah, that brings up, another soft skill, right? Empathy, right? If you're thinking of the customer first all the time. So, for someone who's starting an entry level role or a support role, can you tell us a little bit about what does growth look like in banking over those first few years?
It's a great question. Slow and steady is wins the race. It's very much the tortoise versus the hare. The tortoise wins out in the end. It's having the ability to uh, be extremely coachable, especially someone new to an organization, understanding how to listen, understanding how to learn, um, being very honest with yourself and with the other. the other people around you, uh, looking for feedback, looking for opportunities to learn, which you never run out of in this industry, especially a large institution. You can
Mhm.
you can work in 10 different departments over 10 years and still not know half of really anything that goes on. So it's a very it never ends as far as the learning is concerned. So for people who are new, the best advice I could give them is be coachable, uh, be easy to manage. I know
And
it
what does
sounds,
that mean, being easy to
but
manage?
being easy to manage, meaning accepting feedback, understanding uh, the tree of authority, how things work, um, understanding that there's a mission and you may not necessarily be in the room when the mission is being figured out, but trusting that the people who are at the helm are making the right decisions and you're, part of that mission. So it's a um, very much a team environment.
Hmm. Yeah. We hear a lot, that coachability is very desirable. And, I'm hearing that from you. What are some of the types of jobs in banking that a new grad might get? What are some of those early career roles? Because you mentioned there's retail, there's financial services where you are. Um, Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I always say there's something for everybody in financial services. I mean, I've filled roles for so many different positions over the years. Where I think recent graduates have an advantage is that to get into fast track programs. So someone like myself, who's, going to date myself in, this the second half of my career, um, kind of did things on my own, tried this, tried that, and did different things, and ultimately ended up where I am. But there's programs by design for recent graduates where they literally put them on a trajectory to get to a particular position that they're interested in, where they move them through an engineered career path the first couple of years and move them between divisions. They learn different things. And the probability of the success those individuals have is much higher. They typically end up with much higher pay. They end up getting promoted exponentially faster than other people. They tend to have a lot more success in their career in the industry because they started on one of those programs. They're pretty competitive to get into,
Hmm.
but for recent graduates, a really, really good program and a really good and most of the large financial institutions will have those in some fashion. Um, a lot of them will be recruited through internships,
Hmm.
so programs like that. So, uh, but if they don't go through that program, we have first year associates in financial services, analysts. On the retail side, you have all different kinds of roles. You have everything from tellers to um, platform associates that work within the branches. So it depends what the person wants to do and how skilled they are uh,
Hmm.
at their interest.
Yeah, sounds like there is a wider variety than people might think when you think of banking, right? Um, the program that you were mentioning sounds really attractive because they get to try so many different roles, and it sounds like there is a distinct path that kind of moves them along. What are those programs called? Like if one of our listeners was interested, what would they be looking for?
Sure. Every place probably calls them something different, but they
Hmm.
falls into a category of you know, typically sort of a fast track management program, or I'm trying to think of what the other institutions would call it. But sometimes they'll call it something like path to success program or something to that effect.
Hmm.
Uh, but if someone's looking for it, usually they have to get involved very early in their career. It could be right out of college or through an internship while they're in college,
Hmm.
management trainee, something to that effect. For example, like Jim Rohr, who was the former CEO of PNC before Bill Demchek, came up through that program at PNC.
Really?
He came worked there for 30 years, and then came up through that training program.
There
Um,
you go. The sky's the limit.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I feel like you have a lot more to share, and I'd love to have you back to tell us more.
Sure. I appreciate you having me. Would be happy to do so.